Hey, it's Jessie. Let's do a status check. Got my best Hawaiian shirt on. I got stress bangs. I got stressed skin. I got 5 cups of coffee in my delicate system. Let's make a video. This video is going to be about Allie Smith's How to Be Both. I follow a lot of different YouTube channels and a lot of different bookstagrams, and there's a lot of people with different opinions than me, which is normal. And I love it. I do that on purpose, because why would you only want to follow people who felt the same way that you do? That would be very boring. But a lot of people have been hating on this book lately. And by a lot I mean 3, but that's significant enough for me to want to make a video, or at least think to myself, why do I like this book? Because it honestly is one of my favorites. I'm gonna read a passage from it. I should have marked this, but I didn't, because I don't believe in preparation. I believe, just like in jazz music, it's all about the things you don't do, which is most things. So this is going to be skipping some chunks, condensing, editing. That's what I'm doing, is editing right now for the sake of this video. You're an artist, her mother says, and you're working on a project with a lot of other artists. And everyone on the project is getting the same amount, salary-wise. But you believe that the work that you're doing is worth more than everybody else on the project, including you, is getting paid. So you write a letter to the man who's commissioned the work, and you ask him to give you more money than anyone else is getting. This is posed as a moral question, even though I don't necessarily believe it is. Is it happening now or in the past? George says. Is the artist a man or a woman? Do either of those things matter? Her mother says. Does either, George says, either being singular. Mea maxima, her mother says. I just don't get why you won't commit, ever, George says. And that doesn't mean what you think it means. If you say it without the culpa, it just means I'm the most, or I'm the greatest, or to me the greatest belongs, or my most. It's true, her mother says. I'm the greatest. But the most greatest what? Past or present, George says. Male or female. It can't be both. It must be one or the other. Who says? Why must it? Her mother said. And that's where we get the term. That's where the name of the book comes from. You can say a lot of different things for what this book is about. Obviously there's what it's about in terms of plot, which is 2 people, an artist in the 1460s, Francesco del Casa, and a young teenager in the, I want to say 90s, maybe the 2000s. No, they have cell phones. It's definitely the 2000s, 2010s even. And her name is George. But what it's also about is about art and how we interact with it, and then how it in turn interacts with us. Because what begins our journey, so to speak, or the artist's journey, so to speak, St. Lucy, is someone contemplating his work many, many centuries after his death. Now, a lot of times we talk about the death of the author, wherein once a work is put out in the universe, it's out there, and it no longer has anything to do with whatever the artist meant for it to mean, or whatever they say it meant. But that's not the only way to read things. A lot of times it doesn't even make sense to read things that way, because without context, like, how are we supposed to make sense of anything? I specifically, like, look at this. This is by Francesco del Casa, who is a real artist. Allie Smith imagined a life for this person about whom very little is known. He wrote the letter, and I think that's all we know existed. Wherein Francesco is both a man and a woman, and exists in the past, in the 1460s, and in the now times, in the 2010s, when they got cell phones. After he's dead. And he does that through his art and how his art is perceived. I think one of the key questions is, if we look at art, does art look back at us? And if so, what does that mean? And the answer to that is, I don't know. But don't you want to think about it? Don't you want to know? One of the things people have been complaining about that I've seen in this is that they find it very weird and inaccessible. And first off, I want to say that I love weird shit. And I think that's just a taste issue, but I just love things that are super weird. And if you don't, that's fine. I totally understand. But in terms of accessibility, I don't know. I mean, I think about those paintings that you see in museums that are all about martyrs that are either pre or post or peri torture. There's just like wings and wings of like sad Jesus nailed to the cross and like Mary looking at her son. And whenever I see them, I'm like, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? And when we talk about accessibility versus inaccessibility, those works of art should be very accessible. I mean, I know who the people in them are, I know what is supposed to be happening, I'm familiar with the majority of the saint stories, but I don't understand what the art is supposed to be doing, or how I'm supposed to feel, or anything, or what I'm supposed to be getting out of it. I don't find that art very accessible, and a lot of times I skip those wings. One of the coolest passages is where Ali Smith is explaining or interpreting or just pointing out, asking questions, having a dialogue with the art that Del Caso has painted and that survives. This is St. Lucy, who is, I don't know if she's off, I don't know what's most common. I think usually her eyes are on a plate, but she represents light in the darkness. That's where we see her in Dante. I know her most from Dante. I don't know her most from like Catechism. Sorry, St. Lucy, I'm sure you're great. But if I see a picture of St. Lucy, I'm like, that's St. Lucy, there's her eyes, light in the darkness, moving on. But when you have someone who knows, who's looking carefully, who's having a dialogue with the painting, then I can see it, then there's a lot of details and a lot of specific things that get pointed out that make me realize where the art is, that it's not just depicting a saint, but it's making a statement about viewing, about being seen, about making art itself. And so on top of that accessibility of like, this is St. Lucy, I get it, there's this inaccessible layer where either you need a lot of context and art history, or you need to be good at looking. And one of the things I love about experimental works is that it forces you to look. You don't have a choice because it's so goddamn weird that you have to stop and think, why are these words on the page this way? I don't know. Very confusing. It's not how they go. It's not how words on a page go. I mean, I'm gonna be honest that when I was first reading this, I read the first 2 or 3 pages like 5 times because I had no idea what was going on. But that's intentional because the first person character who's narrating also doesn't know what's going on. And so you're going along on this journey with them. Anyway, I have a lot of things I want to say, but I do want to talk a little bit about what it means if art is looking back at us. Because that means not only is the death of the author not a good way for us to be looking at art, it means that my cat is being so cute right now. Sorry, that was distracting. My cat is art, and I was appreciating, and she was looking at me, and I was looking at her, and the art was looking back. But if art can look back, that means it's not a static thing that is in time, and we see it in its absolute truth. There's a way to like get to the foundation of that, and then you're done. Theoretically, you read Jane Eyre, and you're like, got it, love is this. And if you could get there, that would be great. It was really hard to get there. But what this proposes is that we read Jane Eyre, and Jane Eyre reads us. Or that the author even continues to exist because we read Jane Eyre and we think about Jane Eyre, and it means something to us. Now, what the work of this artist means to George, who takes place in the now times, is different when her mother is alive than when her mother is dead. This book is also about grieving. And it's interesting that it's about death, because the first person we meet is dead, has been dead, but is like still alive, and maybe there's heaven, maybe there's not, but he at least exists on through his art. And then the very next part, his mother is dead, and it's really sad. Like, you feel her pain really acutely. But why do we feel that so acutely when we know there is some kind of continued existence? I don't know. See, I still have a lot of questions, and that's one of the things I love about it, is that you read it and then there's a lot of food for thought, and then you have to revisit it and go back to it. And I think that's when a book really speaks to me, is when you can spend so much time with it. That's when it can be your desert island book that you can read and read and read, and it's never the same again. It changes because you've changed, it changes because you've read it before, it changes just because it's not a static thing. And I think that when you're making art about art, you have to reflect that. I don't know. I think this book is perfect. And I get it if you don't like it, if it's not your thing, but I wanted to talk about what it means to me. Thank you for listening. Make a comment if you think I'm totally wrong, or if you think I missed something super obvious. And yeah, tell me what your favorite book is, that when somebody else is bashing it, you get a little bit of hurt in your heart, even though everybody is entitled to their opinion, and I totally get it. If you found me by accident, you're watching this video by accident, and you liked it, please subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!